Welcome back. Now, AI has been a buzzword for the last few years, but today we look at AI from a safety lens. I spoke to Evan Kotsovinos, the Vice President of Privacy, Safety and Security at Google, and he believes that one of the biggest challenges with AI is deepfakes. I asked Evan earlier today and started by asking him about safety concerns around AI and how watermarking can help tackle deepfakes. Listen in.
We're excited about the enormous economic opportunity that comes with AI, both in India and globally. And we see safety as absolutely foundational to that opportunity being realized. Like any big technology change, AI is used for good and for bad. And so we're seeing several areas where there is increased risk and increased threats with the use of AI. The most obvious one is probably deepfakes. If you think about things like the digital arrest scam here in India, which is very common. That's clearly empowered by AI. We're seeing hyper-personalized spear phishing. We're seeing AI being used for cyber attacks increasingly. So there are multiple dimensions where we're doing some really committed, dedicated work to address these and to stay ahead of the bad actors.
Let's talk about deepfakes. That's, of course, one of the areas as well that you're trying to address. I just want to bring in, of course, what the government's thinking is. The government is very concerned about deepfakes, the impact that this synthetic content, AI-generated content has on public conversations, public sentiments, how it influences elections. You mentioned digital arrests. That's something that the government is very, very concerned about. They've proposed changes to the rules as well to ensure that there is watermarking of AI-generated content. How far along are we in that journey?
Watermarking technologies are evolving quickly. We are investing in adopting those technologies in our products. Anything you generate with Gemini will be watermarked. And would like to see the rest of the ecosystem do the same. So in spirit, we're in support of the direction the government is going. But I think watermarking and provenance technologies are going to be part of the answer, not the full answer. To your point, the reality is that it will take many years for watermarking to be adopted across all of the models, if it ever happens. And so we need technologies that detect media that is AI generated. Sure. And then we need to incorporate all these things into the delivery surfaces that the users are using. So for example, the phone, right? If you're on the phone and you're in a digital arrest kind of situation, and there's a way to detect that, we need to alert the user on the phone that this is happening. So all these things need to come together for the problem to actually be addressed. And it's not something we can do alone. It's something that we need the whole ecosystem to stand behind.
When you talk of bringing the entire ecosystem together, is there a case to be made that whether it's at the phone level, at the manufacturer level, or at the level of, say, perhaps a Google or a YouTube or a platform that is provided, for there to be perhaps some inbuilt tools which can help alert users to such AI-generated synthetic content? At least, can that be a start?
Platforms have to take accountability for the safety of their users. So there's a fine line between the platform being responsible for the content that's being uploaded to the platform and the platform being responsible for the safety of the users. Right? There's a fine line between those two, but they're also distinct. In my mind, platforms have responsibility for the safety of their users. We certainly approach it that way. And it's important that everybody else does as well. And we coalesce on watermarking and provenance. We coalesce on keeping users safe.
Is there a need for perhaps a dedicated mechanism or a dedicated AI audit or safety office here in India as well that will give more clarity, more direction in terms of what are the steps that perhaps need to be taken?
You know, I'm not super clear on the organizational structure of the different bodies that provide governance and sort of control and regulation in this space in India. So I can't comment on the structural question directly. But I think certainly to the extent that clarity can be provided and that clarity can be durable, that is very helpful. One of the challenges with regulating AI right now is it's changing so fast. Regulatory timelines are long by necessity, by nature. They go through public consultation processes and so on. And so trying to regulate such a fast-moving space is not straightforward. So I have respect and admiration for the regulators who are trying to do that.
There are a recent set of regulations that have been introduced here in India which talk about ensuring parental consent, where platforms like Google will be required to, while processing data of children, will require parental consent or parental authority. Is that a workable mechanism? Do you feel that that's something that can be implemented not just in letter, but also in spirit?
So I would say a couple of things there. First of all, I'll get to consent, but before I get to consent, it's important that age is assured across different platforms. What I mean by that is that different providers of content don't just take the user's word on their age, but they actually take some steps to assure that the age of the user is what the user says their age is. Because without that information, you can do all the consent that you want. If a child claims they're an adult, all bets are off. So it's very important that the ecosystem, again, invests and focuses on age assurance. We're doing that in a very committed way. We're rolling out age assurance technology globally to make sure that we understand whether our users are adults, minors, or children. Consent-based solutions generally are common and workable. Of course, the specifics depend on how the requirements are exactly defined and worded, and how the age limits are sort of tuned and so on. So, we'll have to look at the specific proposals to comment more concretely. But in principle, we have no problem with consent-based approaches. We use consent heavily in a number of different contexts, and it's a constructive direction of exploring towards the right solution.
When we're talking of user harm, a lot of the conversation slowly crawls back and travels back to some of the algorithms that are used. Is there a case to be made for perhaps some form of audit of these algorithms to check for user harm?
We will do what we have to do to comply with whatever the regulators require us to. We operate within the boundaries of the law in India. India is a sovereign country that will decide what is right for India, and will comply with whatever we have to do. So I would say our concern is not whether this whether the inspection of the algorithms will touch on intellectual property or not. We will comply no matter what. We'll do what we have to do. I think the question is whether it's effective. And given the complexity and the scale of these algorithms and the way this content is delivered to users, I think it will be an enormous challenge for that to be regulated effectively. In terms of at the level of the algorithm, right? I think it's more likely to be effective if it's regulated at the level of the outcomes, and seeing the safety outcomes that we expect to see for users.
Fair enough. While we're on the subject of safety, that's again an area where a direction that appears to be not just here in India but broadly across various geographies. There is an inward-looking approach that as long as it's personal data, we want that data to reside in the local country, domestically. That's a concern. Is that changing conversations for you from a safety standpoint, from a strategy standpoint? Because there was a time when we used to talk about if data is not allowed to move smoothly, then that'll come in the way of innovation. That'll be an anathema to cloud computing. But now we increasingly see more countries saying that, look, we want data to be localized here. We want that to be stored here, especially when it comes to sensitive personal information.
Yes. No, I don't think it necessarily stops innovation. We've made big investments in this space to try and deliver sovereign solutions that move in that direction. For example, in our cloud, we have our sovereign cloud solution in France and Germany, and we're piloting in other countries, which is a fully third-party operated solution. It uses Google technology, but it's completely detached from Google operationally. And we're working on federated learning technologies, which allow, in a privacy-preserving way, allow training models while keeping user data not just in the country, but on the device of the user. So I don't think it's necessarily a showstopper. It introduces new technical requirements, new complexity, but we're investing heavily in making sure that we marry innovation with sovereignty and with privacy in the appropriate way.
Well, with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Newscentre. More news and updates will continue right here on CNBC-TV18.